Hello, this is Lisa LeRose, and I'm joined by the awesome Michael J. Russ here on Connect to Love on PRN FM, and we're so excited that you are joining us today. We are going to delve into one of our absolutely favorite subjects, which is frequency and vibration and alchemy and how that can be changed. And, you know, when I was in college, this is going to date me most definitely, but there was an album by the Police called Synchronicity. And one of the singles from that, I sort of revisited the lyrics. You know, it starts out, another suburban family morning, grandmother screaming at the wall. We have to shout above the din of our Rice Krispies. We can't hear anything at all. But many miles away, something crawls from the slime at the bottom of a dark Scottish lake. And, you know, I was sort of laughing about that because here we are, you know, each in our own place in the world. And, you know, it's no longer just a din of Rice Krispies. There's a din of newscasts that are sort of blocking us from our greatness. And, you know, I thought it would be such a fun topic to explore, you know, how do you transcend that din? And who knows what it is that's crawling from that dark Scottish lake. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Michael J. Russ, founder of Life Moves Podcast. Welcome, Michael.
How are you?
I am awesome. I am awesome. I'm using the Michael J. Russ awesome to go across my chest. I'm absolutely awesome. Thank you. Feeling very blessed today. Yeah, feeling
Excellent.
very
Excellent.
blessed. And yeah, you know, but it was so interesting because I think up until the time I was in college and I went to a dorm party, I had never really thought about that word synchronicity. You know, it was coined by Carl Jung to be an uncanny coincidence or unlikely occurrence of parallel events, whether it be that we see repeating numbers or we think about something before it happens in real life, or, you know, you get in your car and, you know, you turn on and there's a song playing exactly what you're thinking, you know, or you dream about something and then you see it. You know, synchronicity, I think, is very much related to vibration and frequency. And, you know, I'd love to sort of get your insights and how synchronicity has been at play in your life and how you utilize what you tune into in the vibrational realm to transmute what's going on through the process of alchemy to really shift and bring in what it is that you want in your life.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Great topic. What I would first say is that I think each one of us and all of our listeners, anybody who ever listens to this program, anybody out there, can really, if they give it deeper thought, they can take themselves back to a point in their lives or the various points in their lives, those synchronous moments where they were catapulted in a new direction, where those moments became the catalyst for where they are today. I know in my career, I know the exact moment where everything changed for me. I know relationship-wise when things changed for me. And, you know, it's always neat to go back and revisit mentally that point in time and express your gratitude, of course, for having had that moment, that synchronous moment, when either one thing happened and you were vibrating at the right frequency and you basically attracted that situation, that circumstance, that person, whatever that event into your life in that particular moment. I've always had, in my view, thought that there were markers, that we have markers in our life, people who come into our life at certain points in time to help shift our direction or give us clarity, or in some way, people who were meant to connect with. And some of it is, and we consider it synchronicity or coincidence or accident or whatever. However, metaphysically, it's more fun and more expansive in terms of thinking and enlightenment to perceive it as something stronger than that, something greater than that, something bigger. And it's so much fun to not only do that, but to look back on it and say, okay, and then be, of course, alert to those things today to say, okay, I'm reinventing myself, my life, and here are my new sets of intentions and goals and dreams. And then be on the lookout for the markers, the catalysts, those synchronous moments that bring the situations or circumstances into effect and people into effect in your life that really are there to help you achieve that as well. It's a magical thing. It's an absolutely magical thing to look back on. I like to say, it's funny because my mother just left her after a month and staying with us, and she's a real sweetheart, and everybody loves her who meets her. And the wonderful thing about her that I'm always thankful for, and I'm going to sit down here and write a note to her and mail it back to her to let her know this, is how grateful I actually am for the decisions that were made to put us in places around the world, to take us, to have us live in places that were, backwards behind the times by 100 years from where, we came from. So I could get that contrast early on in my childhood, the contrast between rich and poor, between, extreme poverty, and being able to, go get anything you want at the store, and being able to get on a plane and leave your circumstances. Some people don't have that capability at this particular point. And what I'm coming to here is that I personally have had many synchronous moments. Where I am right now after 38 years, the career path that I have, that I've enjoyed for 38 years, was all occurred because of a seemingly synchronous moment of walking out of where I was working and looking to the right instead of looking to the left like I did every day. I'd come out and just turn left. In a crowd of people, I walked out into a 5 o'clock rush hour of people, and stood there for a moment and tilted my head to the right and looked about, I'd say probably about 100 feet, and caught wind of a guy, and he that I used to work with, and he caught my eye, and he said, "Whoa!" He yelled across through, I don't know, must have a dozen people, "Michael!" And I said, "Bill?" And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we ran towards each other and gave each other big hugs. And he told me that somebody was back in town that I hadn't seen in 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, I think. And his giving me his number to reconnect with somebody else I'd worked with in the same business led me to where I am today, led me to a 38-year career, kind of opened up. Basically, the sky's the limit on what I could do and what I could be. My time's my own. Most amazing thing. And I got the opportunity to help dozens and dozens and dozens of people. People who, I had a client pass away the other day who I dealt with for 37 years. And it's nice to go that length of time with someone, taking care of them and making sure that they're in, good stead, and having their trust. This is a woman who used to say, "Michael, I love you like a son. I love you like a son."
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And it's so wonderful to have that kind of, how can I say that, those feelings come from somebody that you really care about, and then when you develop that trust and confidence in a relationship, which, you think you're doing something for one reason, and really it turns out there are 3 other reasons why you're doing it that you don't even think about, that have nothing to do with either money or career or whatever. It's you're there to you turn into the confidant, you turn into somebody who they can communicate with differently than they can communicate with their family. They're living alone, and you're a lifeline to them, a connection when something happens, and they call you. And it's really interesting. I've discovered that what I've been for 38 years is someone who helps other people, who takes stress off of them. Someone who helps other people relax and be comfortable with their lives and where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's I talked to a friend of mine the other day who's a server, and he's a very happy-go-lucky guy. And I said, you're in the best job ever if you're loving what you're doing. You're being of service to people. You're being a ray of sunshine in their day. You don't know what's going on with them. They come, they sit down, they order a drink, they order a meal. You bring a ray of sunshine to their lives and help them feel good about themselves and where they are. That's what you do. That's you're not a waiter. You're a giver of sunshine, baby. That's what you are. That's the way you have to look at it. And yeah, you put a smile on your face, and you don't know where they're coming from. And it's funny because I thought about this just yesterday. One of the themes of my life is to, and I encourage other people, and especially our listeners, to develop this theme of life as well as one of their running themes, and that is leave people better than you found them. Leave people 100%. Better than you found them. And when you have that operating system, so to speak, where you're operating from kindness and compassion and empathy and love, you do leave people. You seek opportunities to leave people better than they were before you encountered them, whether they be friends, their families, perfect strangers. Is wonderful. I love leaving perfect strangers better than before I encountered them, and in some way. And I just did it yesterday. I was up in the Sky Lounge. I was in the Sky Lounge at a Delta Sky Lounge in Atlanta Airport, and I was sitting there an hour and a half layover after I put my mother on a plane, and I was going to be flying back home. And there was a young lady who had earlier, when my mother and I sat down, I needed someone to kind of clean the table that we were sitting at in the Sky Club, and this young black woman came over. She was serving. They had people running around and cleaning up tables and things of that nature, and making sure people know where things are. And she was a lovely young woman. I'm sure somewhere in her 20s. I didn't ask. However, I could sense that she had a good heart, and she came over and she said, "Oh, let me get that for you." And she took care of it, and I left with my mother, and then I came back because my plane was going to be leaving an hour and a half later, as I said, and I sat down and took out my tablet, and I was going to finish up. I was finishing up a journal that I was going to publish hopefully that evening. Didn't turn out to be today before the show, but due to some other hitches in the giddy up. But she was somebody who was very nice, and I didn't have a card. I've given away 3 of my podcast cards. I'm trying to get my mother out. In attempting to get my mother out of here on time and getting done with my work and getting to the airport, I had forgotten to put. I usually carry like at least 10 or 15 podcast cards because I run into people, and I share them with them. And I didn't have one, so I wrote on the napkin. I wrote the name of my Life Moves podcast, Michael J. Russ, and I said before I left, she came by. She was walking by. I said, "Excuse me." She says, "Yes." I said, she came over to the table, and I said, "Here, I want to give this to you, and I want you to know something." And she looks me in the eye, and I said, "You can be anything you want to be in life, anything." I said, life is the game of life is played in the 5 inches between your ears, what you think is possible and what's not. And don't forget that. And here's a podcast that will show you exactly how to do that. And she goes, "Oh," I said, "You listen to podcasts?" She goes, "Yeah, I listen to podcasts while I'm working." She has an earbud in her ear, and she listens to podcasts while she's going around and taking care of things. And she says, "I'm gonna go download it right now." And I said, "Okay." And I said,
"That's great.
Remember what I said?" And she says, "Oh yeah." And then I had to leave. It's just and even getting on the plane with the people who the flight attendants, same thing. I stand there with them when I come on the plane for a couple of moments and watch 10 people go by, and I'm jovial with them, and because I know people who serve other people generally don't get the respect that they really deserve. and they're doing something that they love, yet they have to deal with other people's grief and madness and sadness and anger and all that generally. So I want to be the ray of sunshine for them that they remember, that helps them get through their day with more levity and better feelings. You know, trying to shift the whole, transmute whatever it was that they were dealing with before the previous flight or whatever. And flight attendants have been dealing with a lot. And my ex-wife was a flight attendant, now a purser for a major European airline. And so I've done a lot of flying, and I've done a lot of hanging out with flight attendants, and I've heard more stories than I care, more sad stories and weird stories, and, you know, I mean, people who just don't treat them with any sense of respect whatsoever. Somehow when you pay money to somebody to do something, you think that they're there on your beck and call, and they should bend over backwards 8 ways to Sunday to make sure that your bad attitude is placated. And I'm like, you know what? Let it go. These people are doing what they love, and what you need to do is give love back to them. And so anyway, that's my little catalyst. I'd like to know if you have a specific moment where a synchronous moment that kind of shifted and changed things for you. I know you've got tons of them.
Oh, so many, Michael. But when you were speaking about catching somebody out of the corner of your eye, I thought about that Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Sliding Doors. And for our listeners who never saw the movie, it's really a must-see. It's her life in 2 different ways, one where she made the train and the other where she missed the train.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it was such a poignant film because, you know, no matter whether she made the train or missed the train, I don't want to be the spoiler alert, but at the end of the movie, she was still at a beautiful point. And when you were speaking, there was a greeting card, and you talk about synchronicities, and, you know, you think about how things touch your heart, and it was a greeting card by Flavia. And when I was in school, I loved going and losing myself in greeting cards because of the messages. And sometimes they're laughing out loud. Some of them would be really funny, and then some of them would just touch me. And Flavia wrote really frilly, sort of beautiful cards. But she said, you know, some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some stay for a while, leave footprints on our hearts, and we are never, ever the same. And I think that what you're doing, Michael, that's exactly what you're leaving and impacting these people. You're touching their hearts, and you may not recognize what it is that you gift them or where they're going to take it, because you do it without thinking, and you let it go. And whatever they take, that little nugget of wisdom or the gift of the kind words, you never know what it is that it will transform somebody. And, you know, I think back into, you know, the days back when I was actually had a job and worked for somebody, and my boss got promoted. And this is one of those sliding door moments, you know, and his job went up for, had an opportunity to interview for it. So when I interviewed for the job, I was told that thank you for interviewing, but we don't think you're management material. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. And I had to really question. I thought, well, you know, I think I have these skills, and I think I have these qualities, and what is it that they're not seeing in me that I see in myself? And so I went to the owner of the company, and I said, you know, I have to be honest with you. Where do you see me? Where do you envision me in this culture? Or do you just see me in the same job? Because I'll tell you, if you don't see me somewhere else, I won't be here in 6 months. Because for me, I knew I had more value than that. And so I did. I ended up quitting, and I started my own business. I didn't make very much money the first year. I made like $16,000. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, like my mortgage and some of the other things that I was, my bills. But everything sort of worked out. And I think about, the kindness that I extended to individuals, and they found out that I had opened up my own business, and they said, "Oh, you know what? I know somebody who can use your service, and I know somebody who can, help you." And I like you, Michael, I have kept those clients for over 26 years. And, I enjoy, they're actually part of my family. I sort of fired some of the people that I no longer enjoyed working with.
Right.
But, I think about, all of the different things that sort of happened and led up to that moment, and, all the synchronicities and, meeting different individuals. I seemingly met a young lady who, had a baby, and she had done the same thing. She quit and she started, and, just being able to have that chance meeting and the words of encouragement and, like, well, why are you working for somebody else? You're talented. You can do this. And really, it was those words that she gifted me that made me empowered enough to think, well, you know what? I think I can do this. I don't know how it's really going to happen, but I'm going to do it. And at the time, I started a graphic design and marketing company. I didn't even own a computer, which sounds even really ludicrous to a lot of people, but I didn't have the money to afford it. I had lots of expenses. So I would go to, at the time it was Kinko's, and I would, after midnight, the computers were half off, and I could sit there and I could design. They had all the software. I didn't have to invest anything, until I got to the point where I was able to start my business. But I look back on the energy of those words. We don't think you're management material. And at that point, I could have chosen a lower vibration, but it was the best gift anybody could have ever given me, because my father was an entrepreneur. My grandparents were both entrepreneurs on both sides of the family. And somewhere in my blood, I had that knowledge and that I could do it, no matter what it was that was going to come down the pike. And you think about where the beliefs that we have about ourselves, and I, like you, was really grateful to my mother, because she never thought that I couldn't do. There wasn't anything that I couldn't do. And so I was really gifted with that. It was amazing. She used to say, be like a butterfly, spread your wings and soar. And she's passed on, but I have her cards, and I read them very often. And I don't remember what year it was, but there was an intuitive and who encouraged you to find a buddy. And for a period of a month, you would write that buddy an unexpected email once a day, sharing what you appreciated about them. And I still have those emails, and I read through them about what it was that my mother saw in me. And it's you talk about a gift, and it was, it really, so many times, her words were just what I needed. And so you do that for strangers. You do that for people that you know in your life. And I really love how you talked about that, you catch somebody out of the corner of your eye. Now, when you had that chance encounter, you almost have a feeling, you almost feel an energy pulling you towards that person. I mean, did you sort of experience that when you caught him out of the corner of your eye?
It's really strange that I've relived that particular moment many times, and in gratitude, because it changed. I was managing a shoe store, making like $19,000 a year, working 80 hours a week, hiring and firing and training, and I was just it was one of those things that great experiences for me, in that, but it was time to think farther out than that. I didn't see myself there in 6 months, let alone 38 years later. But when I actually turn my head and look to the right. It's just really odd how it's almost like I had somebody tapping me on my shoulder going, hey, look this way, stop for a second. And it's really interesting how I feel that I'm guided by angels, that I have angels that are always around me doing things, saying things to me. I'm very open to it. I ask for help all the time. And if you were to see me walking down the street or whatever I was doing, or playing drums on stage or singing or doing whatever, you'd probably never think that I do that. It's really kind of unique. For that moment, it was I can't think of any other moment that in my life that had such an impact on my future. Now, all it laid out for me was a choice. It laid out an opportunity. Whether or not I took that opportunity or not, totally, it was totally up to me. It didn't like all of a sudden just lay out everything for me and I just, walk through it. I had to make serious commitments and decisions and commitments which had, consequences. And I knew what those consequences would be, and I had to, walk through some educational situations. I had to educate myself over a 6-month period of time and take an incredibly challenging 6-hour exam in order to become licensed to do what I do. And the bottom line is there's always something that you have to commit to. And so the most beautiful thing is that once the synchronicity occurs, you have decisions, you have choices that you make based on that. You have a way, you can perceive it any way that you want. And whether it's an opportunity to change your life in whatever way it may be, relationship-wise or work, career path, right livelihood, however you'd like to refer to it, or whether it's a place to live, location geographically in the world, there are things that will happen in your life. And they seem like, again, coincidences at the moment, but they're simply just opportunities placed in your path that can help you move to another level of conscious awareness if you perceive them that way. If you approach them from that standpoint and say, how can this help me improve myself as an individual? What can I do? What can I learn? What opportunities will this open for me to be of service to others or to give to other people, to enhance my life, enhance my prosperity, my abundance as well while I'm helping other people? What can it do for me? And you start looking at it from that standpoint. I know career opportunities, most people think, is there more money is there more money there, or is there more money here? I've known people who've taken less money and had a much, much more fruitful experience. It's not about the money. The money sometimes it can bring on stress, pressure, and consequences that have you making more decisions than you really want to be making. That it basically put you in a sort of a mental purgatory, so to speak, where your perceptions of what you do and the people you encounter are always negative. And thus all your feelings in our conversations are negative and your outcomes are negative. And so it's for me, it was a very wonderful, it led to a wonderful turn of events over time, and opened many, many doors of opportunity for me to grow as an individual. I told a couple of shows ago how I was shy and operating under a thought virus of, college education, not having a college degree, going to what I call 2 3/4 years of school of higher education. However, what I say after that is, however, I've lived in 3 countries. I spent 7 years in 3 countries living when I was a kid. And I grew up very quickly. I was doing things at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, 14 years of age that parents today wouldn't allow their kids out of the house to do. It's like, but it's not that it wasn't anything dangerous. It was just the amount of freedom that I had in middle school and high school was just unbelievable. that, in places that people would today consider to be dangerous. They weren't dangerous technically. That's a misnomer when it comes to thinking about places in the world. But that thought virus was the looking to the right instead of turning left and moving. It led to a whole host of growth for me personally when I decided to move and decide to move in a different direction as a result of that seeming coincidence. It's just amazing that I'm the guy I am today because I looked right instead of left, and I made choices and decisions along the way based on that. It's mind-boggling. You can go back and you can dissect it 1,800 different ways. Look at the ways that you grew, the breadth and latitude. It's just amazing that that's the case. And I'm writing books today, and I'm on this podcast, and I do my own podcast as a result of that, of the personal growth I had, the decisions I needed to make. So it's like this huge, like jumping off a waterfall, and then that's 1,000 feet high, and you just have to work your way, fly to the bottom, figure out how to fly and make a soft landing. So
one thing I'd like to interject here real quick, Michael, because I'd love to hear your insights on the emotions tied to this. Because as a manager, as a young man, a manager of a shoe store, you had, even though you're working a lot, you had a pretty good gig. I mean, that, a lot of people respected you. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility. So when you meet somebody and they say, hey, I have this opportunity and, you're going to have to study this and you're going to have to say that, a lot of people would have said, that's not for me, too much hassle. I got this really secure job here.
I agree.
How, internally, did you sort of invite the experience? How do you process, go past the fear state or whatever it was? I'd love for you to share with the audience, being a young man who had, a secure job that was very respectable. I'm sure a lot of people admired you for achieving that.
Interestingly enough, I did a podcast about this sometime in the past year. And what we do when we have opportunities, you have to focus on not the mountain, but the steps you need to take on the path up the mountain. If we look at the mountain and we go, oh, that's too tall. That's Everest. No, I'll never make it there. Your mind starts going, how am I ever going to get there? There's so many different little steps. And my answer to your question is focus on one step at a time. Break it down into something to the little tiny successes that you make, putting one foot in front of the other, and eventually you get there. And you can deal with the little steps, the little things. If you lose a job and you've got to find a new one, instead of becoming overwhelmed by the fact that you don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from, you do the little steps one after another that help you get another job. You register yourself on Indeed now and ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn. You start putting the words out, listening. You put it together a resume. You do these things, these little tiny things that you can succeed at. Putting together a good resume is a success. You've got to see that as a successful step and be able to be grateful that you've done it. Sleep well that night because you've accomplished step whatever, 1 or 10, whatever it is that you, or step 100 that you did. The exam I studied, I would work close to a 12-hour day, and then I would come home and study for 3 hours every single day. And I might take a Saturday off or whatever. Yeah, but I mean, and I had and the material I was studying was really, interestingly enough, I had to break that down to the macro version of what it was. If you got a 2-inch thick book and you need to learn what's in the book, you have to take it one page at a time. And you learn one page at a time. Before you know it, you know the material in the book and you can kind of put it together. And I'm a macro. I like to see the macro picture first and then break it down. That's the way I work. That's the way I operate. Tell me, what's the end result you're looking for? That's the big question I ask people. Say, I mean, you do this thing. What's the end result? What's the goal here? is to be this, to do that. Okay, let's go backwards now. Let's work backwards on it. And I play golf the same way. I have a score in my mind that I'd like to shoot that day, and then I take it one step at a time, one shot at a time, one overcoming of a mistake at a time, everything. That's what you do. And then you get to the end and you go, wow, I shot that great score. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but hey, that's pretty good. Because you didn't get messed up. It doesn't always happen like that, but the point is that it's a function of where your focus is and your attention is. And the macro picture, the big picture, can generally be scary because it creates this mindset of how you get involved in the how, and the how isn't important. That's the least important thing. What really is important is what. What do I do? Mm-hmm. What's the first thing I can do to move in that direction? Sometimes it's picking up the phone and attempting to get a sit down with somebody who is doing what you want to do and picking their brain, buying them lunch, buying them a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it might be. People are more gracious. If someone called me and said, hey, thinking about doing what you've been doing for a long time or I'm thinking about sales and I'd like to kind of pick your brain about it. And I would sit down with them and I would pour out my brain in terms of answering questions that they had and kind of give them a picture of what they're looking at. And at the same time, it would be kind of assessing where their fears were and specifically kind of addressing those fears with some inspiration and some kinds of tools and that can help some enlightenment, that can help them move past that fear, because there's going to be fear everywhere. And Absolutely. So, yeah, that's kind of it, man. You will get to the top of the mountain if you simply focus on putting one foot in front of the other. And I get up in the morning, I do the same thing, one foot in front of the other. Now, keep in mind that I haven't had a steady, or let's put it this way, a guaranteed paycheck in 38 years. No paycheck. If I don't work this month, I won't have a paycheck at the end of the month. I have to do something every day to forward myself. Most people, that would drive them crazy because there's no end. There's no end to it.
No, you have no guarantee of success, right?
Except you have no guarantee
for yourself.
Right. No guarantee of success. I get up. It's the beginning of the month. I don't know. I've had my mother. I've enjoyed her for a month, and I put a little time into what I do, and then I stop that and I focus on mom and go do some things and have some fun, and then the next day I do the same thing. And interestingly enough, it all works out. It always does, and it has for 38 years. And it's and it's true. No guarantees. Yeah. If I stop working, I'm done.
Well, I think part of that is your frequency and what you're putting out, and I was, when you talked about turning left or right, I thought about one of Dr. Joe Vitale's stories where he said he was working at an oil company, and he said every day he'd get in his car and he'd go right, and there was a chain of fast food restaurants, and he always frequented it that way. But the one day he decided to turn left, and he was from Ohio, and he was Italian, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, to the left was this amazing Italian deli with real Italian. Here he was living in Texas, so it doesn't sound like a lot, but for an Italian living in Texas, there wasn't a lot of authentic Italian food. And he said the gentleman made him the most amazing sandwich, and he took his menu, and when he came back, he looked at the menu, he rewrote the menu, he photocopied it, he printed it out, photocopied, put it everywhere, and he said the next day when he went back to the restaurant, it was totally packed with people. And the man came out and he was crying, and he gave him a hug, and he said, "You did this," and he said, "Yeah." He said, it was my way of saying thank you to him. And he said, over the course, he said, not only did this gentleman, make his food for free for a year, when it came time to this gentleman was moving, and it happened synchronistically that Joe was looking for a house. He said, "You know what? I want you to have my house," and he gave them the house. You said, I built this house, and I have a lot of love that went into it. So, you never know when you give something to somebody else, where it's going to end up, how it's going to transform or transmute. But I think the biggest takeaway is, to keep your vibration high. You do something with no expectations, even with you getting up and doing the work that you do. You can set some goals, but you really don't know how it's going to work out. But, you don't sit there and go, oh, well, I'm can't make this work. I'm going to quit. I'm going to, do something else. You work through a lot of things. And I think one of the tools that you speak about and really are passionate about is personal alchemy. And I know you just did a Angel Life Journal on alchemy, and I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit so people would, can kind of understand how something can help you transmute and really transform where you are energetically, frequency-wise, vibration-wise, to really make your day better and better.
Sure. I mean, your day, thank you so much for that. I mean, your day is what you make it. We all know that. We've heard the cliches. Life is what you make it. And again, it's getting up in the morning and curating the day that you want. Number one is it's getting a decent sleep that night, decent rest, which is incredibly important, and waking up and having a purpose first thing in the morning. As I told you, I used to walk every day for like 3 years. I'd get up and I'd walk 2.5, 3 miles. Then I started going to, when my girlfriend's horse was suffering from some illness a year ago, I started going to the barn with her every single day. And I've come to enjoy that very much. It's a very cathartic experience, and plus it has a beginning and an end. When the stall is cleaned, it's cleaned, right? When the aisle is clean, it's clean. When the grass, 3 acres of grass are mowed, it's mowed. You can look at it and go, hey, that was really cool. And when the weed eating and the other stuff, the upkeep, something needs to be fixed. The feeder bin needs to be changed. Blah 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 blah. I mean, there's a purpose to my day, to the first 45 minutes to an hour of my day. There's a purpose. I liked that. Whether it was walking, some people could go to the gym, some people could do it. Have a purpose first thing in the morning, something you choose that resonates with you. It shouldn't be something that you hate to do. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? I came to love walking. I would listen to Peter Sterling. I think who you turned me on to, Peter Sterling, while I walk. And because the music is so angelic, it is amazing. And I practice my breathing, deep breathing when I'm walking. Make a purpose, sort of purpose. If you're going to walk, have a purpose for walking. Have something that you listen to that enlightens you, because enlightenment is the highest frequency you could vibrate at, or something that makes you happy. Another high frequency, something that brings you joy. Do that first thing in the morning. The biggest concern I have for people in this world is that the first thing they get up and do in the morning is something they don't like. That sets the tone for a day that isn't, that you're starting out with a low frequency, number one. Hate or anger or despair or starting out in stress. Those are lower frequencies you don't want to experience. So you have to design your day around something from the very beginning that brings you joy. And in doing so, set the tone of your frequency, a frequency that you can then work throughout the day through the process of alchemy, transmutation. When something, you butt up against something, your joy butts up against something that is a feeling that isn't joyful, when something happens and that joy kind of dissipates temporarily, when you maintain situational awareness remain situationally aware, I should say, of your joyful state, and then something comes along that you deem greater than that state, and that state goes away, and you lower your frequency down into worry or fear or frustration or anger, A la you did this wonderful walk in the morning. Now you've gotten in the car, you got to drive for an hour to work, and it's crowded, and you're dealing with a congested freeway, and you allow your outer circumstances to therefore just destroy what you've built from the very beginning of the day, the frequency of happiness and joy. And you have to be mindful of the fact that the initial response to something that occurs doesn't have to be your response. You have the right as a sovereign being to change it, to say, no, I do not want to feel that today. I don't need to react to that. That's something outside of me. That person cut in front of me, wish them well. This person over here stopped too quickly. I shouldn't be here. I'm going to be somewhere else. I'm going to take it upon me to not be behind this person because this person is not paying attention. They're not an attentive driver, and I really don't want to be around an attentive driver. I'm going to keep my attitude and move forward, and I'm going to vacate that particular area. I'm going to do something. I have choices that I can make. I can control me, the way I think, what my inner conversation is. I can control how I feel, and I can control my responses and actions to what goes on around me. When you remain aware of that, it gives you a lot more control over your frequency because those are the tools you use. Alchemy is nothing more than transformation. So and transmutation is the change from one feeling to the next. You are using alchemy to transmute your feelings, and that's what's going on. Alchemy, and I've identified 16, 17 different elements of alchemy that I've been using and I believe exist. I've talked about music. I've talked about creativity. Putting on some music, some calm music in the car, that can help defray keep you from falling into the lower frequencies. It can bring you joy. Play some music that makes you feel good. You can basically listen to an audiobook or a podcast like this one, or Life Moves, or any of the other podcasts out there that can help you move forward in your life. Yes, they're inspirational, they're motivational, something that helps you remain connected to the higher frequencies, love, joy. Perhaps it's a romance novel that you're listening to. Whatever it could be, curate the things around your day. And when you get to work, you don't have to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. You don't have to, you don't have to fall into, you don't have to fall into the other people's drama. You don't have to fall into their negativity. You can practice detached involvement if you get caught in a bind where somebody's got you cornered and they're talking about some ridiculous thing that happened to them that is dramatic in nature. Doesn't have anything to do with their health. It's just they're talking about some drama that's occurred in some movie or some TV things that, things that don't really make any difference to anybody but that particular person. That person could forget about that 5 minutes later, and it wouldn't make any difference in their life. I'm not into all of that. I know you're not either. I do watch movies that leave me uplifted, and it's a matter of curating high frequency into your day and negating through performing the elements of alchemy necessary when you somebody does something to you or to you directly. I'm kind of getting this thing is kind of what I do is so involved and so layered. I tend to keep it as simple as possible. In my book Zero Adversity, I outlined something very simple. There are only two kinds of events that happen to you: direct events and indirect events. And what you want to do is the direct events happen to you directly. When I give my seminars, I give this example. If I were to walk off the stage and come down there and slap you, that would be a direct adversity for you because I did it directly to you. To everybody else in the room, it's an indirect adversity, right? An indirect situation. And so the bottom line here is to be able to manage the indirect. You have so much control over the indirect, and that's 90%, 95% of what you experience in your day It's happening to someone else, either in your office, at your house, on the other side of the world, on another planet. It's happening somewhere else. And our issue that we deal with on a daily basis is, how do we manage the flow of these indirect events? How do we manage them? How do we respond to them? And the simple response that I offered in the book, I'm paraphrasing it because it's a little bit more involved yet practical, is that you respond positively, successfully. A successful response will maintain a higher frequency, the higher frequency where you want to be. And that successful response, you know, is successful because you feel good after it. When you drive by somebody and they're on the side of the road with a flat tire, and they, if a woman is on the side of the road, or an older person, somebody you know that's having some stress and some trouble dealing with it is, you can drive by them, or you can stop and you can assist.
Mm-hmm.
Stopping by and assisting will make you feel awesome because you're being of service to someone. Driving by doesn't make you feel good. You will second guess yourself. Later in the day, at some particular point, if not once or twice, you're going, I should have stopped. I should have really stopped. That person did really look like they really. Avoid that conundrum of being there with the if I could have, should have, would have, and simply make the successful move right off the bat. That is what I'm saying. Now, if there's already a tow truck there, then stopping is ridiculous. It doesn't do anything for anyone. And so The successful move is just to keep going because they already have help. This is how micromanaging of my day actually is how I'm having to micromanage my day. And you do it enough, it becomes rote. You look at things and you go, how much control do I have over that? None. Let it go. How much control do I have over this? If I have control, I deal with it. I make a move, take action, respond to it, whatever. Someone's crying. Go up to them and soothe them. Find out what's going on. Sometimes there's people out there who stand on street corners and give hugs to people. I'm so in admiration of these people because people need hugs. Whatever that person may be, you got to ask them, hey, are you okay? Are you going to be fine? You need somebody to talk to. And not because I want to get involved with or give them a solution to whatever's going on. Some people just need to, as my mother said, some people just need somebody to listen. That was problem with marriage number 2. I was married to somebody who had so much drama going on and turned everything into drama. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running around like, I'm a person who likes to be of service and of help to people. And in the context of a relationship, because we have, whether it's a friendship or an intimate partnership or whatever, an intimate relationship, marriage, whatever, it was such the antithesis of me that I realized a year in that I am somebody who doesn't get caught up in the stuff, the nuances. I don't extrapolate out all the bad possibilities that can occur from something. It's something that I talk about in my podcast too, is that sometimes we have a tendency to extrapolate. This happens to us, and then we extrapolate out all the possibilities, negative possibilities that can occur from this one thing happening, right? And those things aren't even real, but we're still thinking, this could happen, that could happen, this could happen. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. I've taken myself down this road that doesn't exist. And we have to understand that we are, as human beings, manifestors. We're manifestors. We manifest through our thoughts and our feelings. And so when we extrapolate, we're actually lowering our frequency, and we're manifesting that lower frequency, at least validation of it out there in the world, in circumstances that we're involved in. So I focus more on what I can directly control and really let the other stuff fall away. That's really the one of the keys to keeping your frequency high. There are a lot of different ways to do it. And you just, as listeners, you just have to find the way that works for you, learn about them through this podcast and through my podcast. My book Zoroversity is only 66 pages, but it's potent and powerful, and it's a great listen too, because I created an audiobook out of it. And we just have to learn how to respond to things in life in a positive way. We do that, and guess what? Everything's going to be just fine. This is focus on what you can control, which is really only your own thoughts, words, feelings, and actions, and let everything else fall by the wayside. It's not meant for you to deal with, right?
Right.
And
absolutely. And Michael, when you're talking, sometimes your words become so hypnotic, and I find myself kind of like flowing. Like if I detach from my physical being, and I'm a spirit flowing, and all I could think of was, Michael's talking about this dance of life, and then as you were speaking, I thought, some people really enjoy slam dancing. It wouldn't be my thing. Some people enjoy a tango or a waltz. Some people really love the jitterbug, the fast pace, but none of it's wrong. When you have things that happen in your life, what's good is perfect. What is bad is equally perfect. There's something to, and as you were talking, I was thinking about that resonance, how, when you sort of find your tribe, you find people that support you, and maybe it's an affirmation that you put up, you see every morning, that puts you into that space. We talked several episodes about Tim Freak and his wow word. What word is it that sort of takes you out of that moment, instead of sitting by the water cooler and getting taken downstream into a place that you don't want to. You just, maybe it's just like, wow, I got to get a breath of fresh air. I got to walk outside right now. I'll see you guys after break. And you have to know what's sort of right for you, and discernment. That has always been something. When I heard that word discernment, and I used to, in meditation, I used to ask for discernment. I wanted to know in my heart, what was good for me and what was bad, and the ability to discern between the two. Because some things, it's easy to go along with, like, okay, come out, we're gonna go to a slam dance tonight, and they're not going to really tell you that you're going to feel pretty beat up the next day. Your body's sore, and you think, wow, I just wanted to go with the flow of everything. But not having the wisdom to say, I think I'll pass. I'd love to hear about it tomorrow. It's nothing that really is in resonance with me. But I think that's sort of like the joy of simply being. You allow yourself that. You find the things. One of the things that years ago, I think it was through Glenn, founder of Vibrant Living Network. I heard, he would say, every day in every way I'm getting better and better, and that was Emil Cooley, who utilized that with different individuals, to sort of change their thinking. And he found that by simply praising a patient, he could change the effectiveness of a medicine. And you think about that.
True.
So, he's putting that vibration, he's putting that frequency into that. And, and so I would encourage our listeners to sort of, find your own rhythm, find your own frequency, find what works best for you, and really just know, ask for discernment. Ask, this is my truth. I just know that I feel better when I do X, Y, Z, or when I eat, more fruits and vegetables, or I stay away from, negative television shows at night. Whatever that is, you start to refine that. And, I find it so empowering. And like I said, so if I seem like I'm tuned out a little bit, here I am. I'm swaying with the words that you're sharing, because they're just so profound.
There's what you said that was so profound, that I love about this, is that yes, you were talking about curation. That's what you find out about you, what makes you happy, what makes you joyful. Do more of that. Build your life around that, and it's a constant process of doing things. making attempts at things. And the second thing that came to mind was a song by Billy Preston called "Will It Go Round in Circles." I don't know if you're familiar with that. There's a line in that song about I got to dance and ain't got no steps. I let the music move me around. That's me to a T. I don't want to get so into order of things, creating order in my life. I want to move around. I want to let life move me around. Wherever I need to be, that's where I want to be.
That's wonderful.
I love it though, and that's also the way I dance. I don't have the ability to do line dancing and everything else. I just let the music move me around, whatever I'm feeling at that time, based on the rhythm. So, and you can deal with life that way too. Well,
that's great. Well, here we are at the end of our show, and I just want to
again
thank you, so much for the time and for all of the wisdom that you share. And I'm looking forward to thank each of you who join us here on PRN FM. I'm looking forward to another episode, and I'll let you sign off.
Well, I have to remind people yet again the business of it. This is really interesting stuff that we're talking about, and if you want to share it with someone, if you want to relive it, which can be helpful because there's a lot of treasure in what we're talking about, and you've got to find the treasure in what we discuss that actually enriches your life right now in this moment. It's not about you doing everything. It's about picking and choosing things that help you improve your conscious awareness, elevate your frequency here right now. And you can do that by going to Connect to Love, the podcast. Connect, 2, love, Love, the word love. So do that, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.